call the meeting Lincoln Way Community High School District 210 Board of Education to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have no one signed up for public comment. Anyone wish to jump in? No? Okay. Next on the is the, oh, I'm sorry, nobody's here, no.
Mrs. Lax? Ms. Janice Doyle? Here. Mr. Janet?
Here.
Mr. Costick?
Here.
Mr. Luchetti?
Here.
Mr. Lulo?
Here.
Mr. Perky?
Here. Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the items listed, include approval of the minutes from the July 20th, 2017 meeting, approval of payrolls of July 20th, 2017 and August 4th, 2017, out-of-state travel, approval of hazardous busing routes for the school year 2018. Anyone wish to have any of these items pulled and discussed separately? If not, could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion, second?
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call.
Ms. Janice Doyle?
Aye.
Mr. Janet?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Luchetti?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mr. Perky?
Aye. Thank you. Next, curriculum and instruction update.
Thanks. At your places, you have a quick summary of the strategic long-range plan. And what we'd like to do is every month or two talk about progress on different areas. And so tonight we're going to update you a little bit on the curriculum and the community relations. So the pieces that are in red on the screen and on your page are in place now. They may not be finished, but we're certainly working that way. So under curriculum, the big push was the update, the college and career pathways. We're doing a great job with college prep, so now it's career readiness. And so Amy Fury and Dan Moore got together and they brought in Project Lead the Way, which you'll hear a lot more about this year, but that's an engineering program, very practical, very respected, and we're piloting it this year, and hopefully that'll be a big part of what we do in the future. And a lot of research obviously has gone into developing the blended online learning, and Brian set that up for us really nicely. So I think we're in really good shape for a 5-year plan after just less than a year there. That's going well. And then we've already been working with our asset people on tying into those social, emotional, national standards. So the curriculum, those goals are well underway. The public relations piece, one of our big goals was to get board docs up and going. I think everybody's comfortable with it. And the other one was to schedule the State of the District meeting, which is all set for January. So moving along, I'm not going to dare touch these until Taryn's back because updating the district logo is going to be huge on her down the line. The community relations committee, that's hers, and so we haven't done a whole lot with that, but that's really our next step. But I really like where we're at right now. The other piece that I have for you real quickly, and then Amy will give you an update. The back of that sheet is a list of the speakers that we're going to have come in this year. We haven't done that for a few years. We've had once in a while a department chair or two come in, but we'd really like to get back so you know the people that are really making the decisions and driving the curriculum. And so in 2 weeks at the beginning of the meeting, we'll have the transition team in. That's our 18 to 22-year-old special need kids, and that's really been Mary Harrison's dream for 20 years and finally come to fruition, 58 kids this year. And then as you look down, it's really the core chairs. So at different points in the year, the English chairs will be in, the math chairs, the social science, the science, and the PE. And so the ones that have their hands and their hearts on all the kids in the district, you will hear from them this year, and they'll update you on where they're headed. So I'm excited about getting back to doing this. It's really been on the back burner. So the next piece that we have, Amy's going to talk us through all the neat things that happened this summer with professional development.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, tonight's professional development update begins with the first yet another document at your place. Looks like this. And it lists all the various workshops and programs that we offered this summer. And I thought I would just highlight two. The summer school workshop focuses on strategies for teaching a 5-hour day for 13 straight days per semester, and that is the summer school prep workshop that we had all our teachers come in prior to teaching summer school. The collaborative teaching workshop had our collaborative teachers working through intervention and instructional strategies, as well as planning and preparing their courses in a collaborative manner. And so that was just last week where we had all those team teachers get together and start planning and preparing for the school year. Although there were quite a few choices, by far the most popular professional development workshop that we had this summer were the technology ones, as teachers continue to learn how to use their new laptop, tablet devices and how to navigate Microsoft 365 instructionally. So we're really excited to obviously continue that this year as well. But over the summer, in addition to the opportunities that Lincoln Way provides, many of our teachers also find and attend professional development on their own over the summer, and some of them are very, very unique, which I thought I would share with you a few of those tonight. So for example, Kevin McLeish, he's out of our social science department. He actually was awarded a grant from the Henry Ford Museum in Michigan to take a course on the Landmarks of American History and Culture workshop. The video in the middle is actually, it's actually a video of him plowing the fields, and he was hands-on experiences of what's American history in that workshop during the Industrial Revolution. So that was really cool. Josh Holder, Pat Leonard traveled to Vietnam and were among the people, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, looking for more experiences and perspectives in teaching their AP Human Geography courses. Dina Cavazos, one of our art teachers, took a European art museum tour through Paris and Prague and Amsterdam. Samantha Taylor took a course, she's one of our anatomy and physiology teachers. She took a course down at the Field Museum that was called Anatomy in Clay. So if you look at that skeleton, what you see is the muscles that are brown, that's actually clay that she had to shape and form and then apply onto the skeleton, and then they begin to layer the clay upon that to finish the skeleton. So that was pretty cool. Dawn Floyd, Lisa Getch, had some professional development out in Paris. They actually took 28 students along with them. As you can see in the picture on the left, they probably had a terrible, terrible time. And from PPS, Cindy Sikora and Lori Nick were invited out to UCLA to take part in a Peers School-Based Certified Training Seminar. And then last but definitely not least, this is the one that I'm definitely most envious of. Linda Netkovsky from our Agriculture Department took a course through Miami of Ohio, which sent her to Hawaii. The course was called the Hawaii Earth Expedition, Saving Species. And she told me, she said, those pictures that you see on the right, that was her classroom. And one of the many things that they did was to remove invasive plant species to restore a native bird habitat. Like I said, simply amazing experience to bring back to our students at Lincoln Way. So in addition to these experiences, were numerous others. When I was asking teachers where they had been all summer, what did you do with your summer? There was just amazing things. Anything from, like Tim mentioned, Dan Moore went to training to begin our Project Lead the Way courses, classical guitar lessons, something called a photovoltaic discovery and design. I know that they built a solar car at JJC, which is fantastic. Some other examples, humor in the classroom. Also, Mike Bolton starred in the curtain calls Not Now, Darling, where I guess he had a perfect English accent. Some other ones, courses on student motivation, next generation science standards, also, and now not only taking courses, but teaching courses as well. So our teachers definitely, very much busy, very much, doing very extremely awesome things over the summer to fulfill their professional development. So looking forward to this year, as I mentioned on Institute Day, we have a year full of professional development planned, starting with instructional strategies across the curriculum, teaching the 21st century learner, and of course many opportunities to continue, of course, with our technology in the classroom. And at this point, I'll definitely turn it over. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Amy. All right, next on the agenda are action items. First one is presentation of invoices for 2017.
Motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $3,246,334.55 dated August 17, 2017.
Motion, is there a second? Second. Any discussion on the invoices? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Janice Doyle. Mr. Janet.
Aye.
Mr. Costick. Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo. Mr. Kirkland.
Aye. Thank you. Next, Treasurer's Report for 2017. Look for a motion to accept the Treasurer's Report as presented in your package. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second.
Okay, thank you. So you'll find in the board packets there, we've kind of changed a little bit on some formatting, trying to hopefully streamline this while providing all the same information the board is used to receiving. You'll notice the treasurer's report is the same as in prior months. The district did receive just over $3 million while expending $12.2 million. Probably the number we're all watching closely is our ending cash balance as of July 31st, $18.3 million in total, $9.2 million within the operating funds. The change in the financial reporting, we are summarizing that down into one major report with a couple of graphs and then a sub-funds. So by the financial report, all funds, what you'll notice by that is, at this point, its trend analysis is very limited. We're only 1 month into it, but we are receiving, we did receive a few more taxes than in our prior July. That's just because we had collected fewer as of the end of June, plus our tax levy is more this year. But otherwise, if you look at those expenditures, they are there by the major categories as defined by the ISBE budget manual. And so we're really honing in on those, especially salaries and benefits. We're monitoring way the report works is we're comparing last July to the last year's actual, this July to the budget, and proposed budget at this moment. And so we can watch and see, make sure how those are trending. Finally, at the bottom of the report, that breaks it down by every fund, just showing the change. So then you can see in the last year column for 2016, you can see, well, where was the, like the Ed Fund, O&M, whatever, and then you can compare that in the change and well, how is it doing better or worse as compared to a prior year. As we get more into the year, we'll definitely be providing more analysis, more written information on that as we start to see that comparison. Then it also is, and we just have two major graphs in the back. The thing I love about graphs is that you can quickly look and see something, but at the same time, this graph is not weighted, if you will. So for what I mean by that is, we know like 80-some% of our revenue comes from taxes and CPPRT. Well, when you look at the graph, it's going to be on a percentage, and so you might compare that to federal dollars. Well, it's not really comparison. The bulk of our money is in taxes, but what's important is the year-over-year comparison. So you can see easily by this chart that we're running a little ahead in taxes. Overall, revenue is fine. If you flip to the next graph, the expenditure graph, of course, here again, salaries and benefits, by far the largest expenses we have. And you can see right off that we're trending right where we'd expect. We're really going to keep an eye on that to make sure how we're trending and everything throughout the year. And then finally, we do have we didn't graph this, but there is also then just the operating funds only, and that really just allows you to look at just operating, which is everything except for debt service and capital projects. And so we'll continue this style report moving forward. Once we get our individual cash flows done, we'll be adding a separate cash flow report to that too, but otherwise, if there's questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Open for questions at this time for Brent? Anyone? No one? Entertain a motion, we see roll call, sorry.
Ms. Janice Doyle. Mr. Janet. Mr. Costick. Mr. Lucetti. Mr. Lulo. Mr. Kirkland.
Aye. Thank you. Next is designated Assistant Superintendent of Business CSBO to prepare fiscal year 2018 tentative budget.
Well, this is a formality. We would look for a recommendation that the board would designate Brad to prepare the tentative budget for fiscal year 2018.
So moved. Second.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, roll call please.
Ms. Janice Doyle. Mr. Janik.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mr. Kirby.
Aye. Thank you, Brett. All right. Next is establish fiscal year 2018 budget hearing date.
Go ahead, Mr. Coffey.
All right, thank you. So in your packet of information is the tentative budget with the timeline and resolution to go ahead and adopt. By state law, we need to put the budget on display at least 30 days prior to adoption. So we'll be putting that on display on Monday, which is 31 days before its anticipated adoption, which is scheduled for September 21st, as we anticipate the board would take action on then. So that public notice is in there, so is that resolution. There's hard copy at your table. Really what we're looking for at this time is this is just a general introduction to the budget. I'm not really going to go in through anything other than to say, as you're going through things, if you have a particular question or something, fire me an email. I'm in the process right now of preparing the presentation for August 31st. We'll have an in-depth workshop session for you then. And so if there's a particular question, we'll work that into my presentation and we'll be ready to go for August 31st. So look for the board to adopt this resolution to put it on display.
Is there a motion to adopt the resolution as presented in your package?
So moved.
Motion, can I have a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any additional discussion? I have a quick question. When this goes out for public, where will it be located at?
It's actually going to be put on display in the annex, and then we'll publish a notice in the paper also letting them know that if any interested citizen would like to view it, they can view it at the annex.
It's in public content on the.
Well, yeah,
It's
and on
in
the
public
web.
content on board docs.
Right, and the board docs.
Just wanted it to be said out loud. Thank you, Doug. Roll call.
Ms. Janice Doyle. Mr. Janik.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mr. Kirby.
Right. Thank you. Next, 2017 tax levy. Okay, yes, okay, you can hear me fine. Okay, thank you. So what we're here tonight is to go ahead and comply with law and get the ball rolling as far as our tax levy. I want to emphasize that really what the tax levy determination is this goes ahead and sets out for the community to know what the board is contemplating on actually adopting a resolution for tax levy. The actual tax levy will be set, anticipated for September 21st, and then filed on September 22nd with the county. Key points for tonight's presentation, the Lincoln Way taxpayers or homeowners could expect to see their tax rate decline. You can see there on the screen is the last 2 years actual and the estimated 2017 rate. We are basing the existing EAB. We're estimating that growth will be a reassessment, will be 4.27%. That's based on the prior year's reassessment, and reassessment has been going up lately. As far as new property growth, we have to estimate this at this point, and we are estimating high. I would call this the high water mark. Why do we estimate high? Well, we want to make sure that we don't leave any of our new property untaxed. And so it's just really a security for us. Built into the budget is what we think is more realistic. We believe we'll have about 68 million of new growth, and that's what our budget is based on, to make sure we don't over budget on our revenue. But once that final number is known, which won't be until April of 2018, and at that point the county treasurer will adjust our levy, and so then just that amount of new growth will be taxed. Based on existing homeowners, median home price of $265,000, we would expect
that on average, that they would see a $39 increase in the Lincoln Way tax rate, or about 2.2%. So that's the CPI of 2.1 plus the little bit that our debt service is going up. Last year, you could see the increase was $10, and the prior before that, on average, it was 18. So what governs the tax levy? Well, there's three laws that really govern the tax levy. You've got truth in taxation, you've got school code and property tax code, and then finally the property tax extension limit law. I'm just going to quickly walk through what each one of those and the requirements for the board. All right, truth in taxation is basically requires that if your tax levy is increasing by more than 5%, then you have to have the little black box advertising, and you have to publish a notice no less than 7 days, but no more than 14 days before the actual adoption. Now we're proposing, the tax levy you'll see here tonight is less than 5%. So we do not require to do this notice. We will have a hearing, but we're not required to have the notice. If for some reason after the fact the board adopted a levy of more than 5%, then we have to go through the notice and all of that, but we don't anticipate that at all. And then finally, which we're doing here tonight, you must estimate your tax levy at least 20 days prior to the adoption. And so we're fine here, that's what we're doing. All right, finally, the school code. School code lays out the timing. So we're on August 17th here. We're going to estimate or do what they call tax levy determination resolution. We're looking for September 21st adoption, and then we'll be filing with the county on September 22nd. Finally, PTEL. PTEL is the property tax extension limit laws. In short, what PTEL does is it limits your tax growth increase on your existing taxpayers to CPI or 5%, whichever is less. Then you get the marginal tax rate on new construction, and as I mentioned before, the county treasurer actually adjusts it off. You've overestimated your new growth. You're actually just taking your marginal rate is on the actual new growth. So what we have here then is a comparison of our tax rates for the last several years, or tax levies, I should say, with the appropriate CPI and tax rate. And you can see there, 2017, we're anticipating, you got the CPI of 2.1. Existing taxpayers, I can't say that enough, existing taxpayers should expect a 2.2% increase, even though the levy here is showing total levy to go up 4.83. That's because of the new property, estimated new property growth. So existing taxpayers, 2.2%. And then finally, here we go. This is the complete levy by fund with a comparison from 2016 to 2017. Linking out there also the maximum legal rates and the calculation there on the bottom of how this was arrived. So with that, I would open up for questions anybody might have on the tax levy determination.
Why are we doing this this early before all the estimates are in?
Great question. Okay, the reason why we're out so early is because we need to be prepared for our tax anticipation warrants. So based with our cash flow, we may need to have those in place as early as October. We cannot do tax anticipation warrants until we've actually filed a legal levy. So most typical school district may be doing this in December. That's legally, you have to file your tax levy by the last Tuesday in December. We need to get ours done a little sooner because we need to make sure we have cash flow.
Do you know how much, you said a little was due to the debt service. Do you know how much that, for the example you gave on a $265,000 fair market value home, how much of that is due to the
Yeah, about on an average, it's about 0.1%. So you see our debt levy, that's a non-cap, going up from 15.3 to 16.1. It's about 0.1%. So we had 2.1. When you put in the change on the debt service, it went to 2.2.
And from a dollar standpoint, how much, if you were to use the amount we used in the budget for growth, what would that bring that $81
Oh.
million to?
Yeah, I have that, just a second. So, yeah, based on the 68 million, what can we be expecting in our tax levy based on the 68 million of new growth? Oh, I apologize, I do not have that readily, but I'll provide that at the next meeting. I apologize, I should have had that here. Other questions?
So, I mean, using 100 million, that's being extremely conservative to make sure that all new growth is taxed.
Correct.
We had about 60 million for fiscal year 2017, weren't we?
Correct.
Yeah,
Was the actual number?
I think it was 62 to be,
Just over 60.
yeah, 61 million something, so. Right, so in our budget, we're anticipating 68 million, and that's the critical number when it comes to budgeting and et cetera.
And how do you arrive at that?
68 million, it's based on, we looked at the estimated increases over time. You can see it's been increasing each year. So that was our best estimation, you know. I did reach out to the the township assessors, but at this point, you know, really they just finished finalizing last year's numbers and they're really just getting things rolling so they weren't able to give much input.
Were any changes made between the funds, the allocation between, for example, education and transportation, or were any changes made there?
Yes, and you can see that here on this chart. What I would really call note too is, you know, like you can see IMRF and Social Security, we're actually bringing that levy down a little. Where we're really pushing some of the resources into O&M, so we can have the funds there to pay the loan back to Ed Fund. And we want to get all that, and you'll notice in the budget, that is budgeted in there this year to take care of those loans. So the loan payback to working cash and the loan back to Ed Fund. And so that's where we kind of shuffled that around to make that all possible.
And why the change in the tort?
Well, on the tort fund, we're seeing a decrease in our expenditures there. So we had gone out to got a bid on our insurance. So the insurance, property insurance and stuff is down. So we just have less expenditures there. So we went ahead and adjusted that tax levy in accordance with that. So this tax levy has been balanced against the proposed budget. So, you know, we took what we had known that we have coming in or left to collect for 16. Then we figured out we're going to have about 51% for 2017. Then we balanced that off and said, okay, what do we need to adjust where? And that's how we've arrived at these numbers. So they do balance. The tax levy has been balanced off against the budget.
And similar to the budget, how does this posting process go?
Right, so with the tax levy, the big thing is there's a resolution in your packet tonight, which you need to do an official resolution at least 20 days prior to actually adopting. So that's what we'll do tonight. We'll do the tax levy determination. And then on the September 21st, we'll be looked to pass a resolution to adopt. Did I get the question?
But I was asking, is there like a public, does it have to be published or?
No.
Public notice or anything?
There's no notice needed since we're below the 5%.
Okay.
So no black box required.
Anyone else? Okay. Now, I need a motion to accept the resolution for the 2017 tax levy determination as presented in your package.
So moved.
Motion second.
I'll second it.
Any additional discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Janice Doyle. Mr. Janik.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Rulo.
Aye.
Mr. Kirkland.
Aye. Thank you. Next, student activities report for 2017. We'll look for a motion to accept it as presented in your package. Motion and a second. Kelly?
Good evening. Not much to report student activity fund this month. The activity was pretty minimal. Our balance at the end of the month was $2,003,562.81. We have 3 accounts that were negative, the 2 that I've reported consistently over the last couple of months, which we should start to see probably go positive as fundraising occurs for those class sub accounts. And then the girls golf at Central was slightly negative at the end of July. As of today, that looks positive. There's just a tiny difference with a deposit. So for student activities for this month.
Any questions for Kelly regarding student activities? Just a quick one. Any update on the class of accounts?
No update. I guess, probably looking for direction from the board on that.
So,
How would you like for me to proceed? We can add it to a future agenda item to discuss further, and then take it from there.
Okay. Fair enough. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Ms. Janice Doyle?
Aye.
Mr. Janik?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye. Thank you. Personnel reports.
Good evening. Under employment, Catherine Gail Albano, part-time copy room worker. Luke Bell, special services teacher. Carrie Brennan, cafeteria worker. Latanya Calhoun, bus driver. Kevin Conway, library media clerk. Katie Dyer, paraprofessional. Veronica Zurabellin, bus driver. Kayla Garcia, paraprofessional. Stephen Helms, bus driver. Julie Heilman, paraprofessional. Christine Jansky, paraprofessional. Angela Johnson, cafeteria worker. Gary Kolner, bus driver. Catherine Kovach, cafeteria worker. Amy Martin, paraprofessional. Carol McCorkle, paraprofessional. Robin McNeely, paraprofessional. Amanda Mellon, paraprofessional. Sherry Paoletti, paraprofessional. Dennis Prohaska, bus driver. Julia Seidel, world language teacher. Josh Stephens, paraprofessional. And Alyssa Vanderskad, English teacher. I ask the board to approve these employment recommendations as presented.
Motion to accept the employment personnel report is presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any additional questions for Rob? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Janice Doyle? Aye. Mr. Janik?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Under retirement, Dan Leonard, mechanic, is requesting to retire under the IRMF retirement system effective November 30th, 2017. I ask the board to approve this retirement recommendation as presented.
We have a motion to accept the retirement personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions for Rob? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Janice Doyle? Aye. Mr. Janik?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mr. Kirking?
Aye.
Under leaves, Amanda Kavanaugh, English teacher at Lincoln East High School, has requested an FML leave at the conclusion of her maternity leave. Lindsay O'Farrell, reading teacher at Lincoln Way Central High School, has requested a 3-week FMLA leave at the conclusion of her maternity leave. Amanda Trazer, math teacher at Lincoln Way West High School, has requested a parental leave at the conclusion of her maternity leave and has asked to return at the beginning of the 2018-2019 school year. Under resignations, Mary Huffnagel has requested to resign her position as bus driver effective August 1st, 2017. Joseph Infantino has requested to resign his teaching position in the Special Services Department as well as baseball coaching position at Lincoln Way Central High School effective immediately. Robert McMahon has requested to resign from his bus driver position effective August 3rd. Robert Meters has requested to resign from his paraprofessional position effective August 10th. Jeanette Powers has requested to resign her bus driver position effective August 7th. And Paul Scarrett has requested to resign from his maintenance and grounds position effective July 1st, 2017. I ask the board to approve these personnel recommendations as presented.
Okay. Motion to accept the personnel report regarding resignations and leave as presented by Rob. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Janice Doyle. Aye. Mr. Janik.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mr. Perkins.
Aye.
Thank you, Rob.
Next, District 843 fiscal year 2018 budget.
Recommended motion would be a motion to approve the District 843 budget for 2018 as presented in your backup materials.
Look for a motion to accept the budget as presented in our materials.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second.
And we have with us Sarah and Colleen to answer any questions we may have in regard to the budget. Any questions or discussion items?
I guess my first question would be, is this what we have here just the portion that District 210 pays?
Yes, that's correct.
Correct. And the amounts going up about 100,000, but still less than where it was in fiscal 16.
Correct, 5% of the 5% of the increase was due to salary increases that were approved at board meetings, and our HMO costs went up 2.5% this year. I would say 85 to 90% of our employees are in the HMO plan. The PPO plan stayed flat, but the majority of our employees are in the HMO plan, so there's about a 5% increase overall in expenditures for those two things. You'll see the other increases in transportation. We purchased 5 buses this year. We were awarded a grant with the EPA, which offset, we had 5 buses that were 2006 or older diesel engines, and the EPA is trying to get those buses off the road. So the EPA had a rebate program out there, and we were one of the 3 schools in the state of Illinois that were awarded the rebate. So the board approved purchasing 5 buses. So that's the big expenditure that you're seeing in transportation. That's the biggest difference there. Once the rebate comes in, we'll be given a credit to each district based on their expenditures for transportation when the rebate's received. So right now, we just took possession of the buses, and we're in the process of, the EPA has very strict scrappage. So I have to, the scrapyard just picked up the one bus that didn't run, and we drove the other 4 that did run, and now we're gonna be taking pictures of all the engines to make sure they're all drilled, because the EPA wants them out of commission, so now I have to prove that they're out of commission. So I have a scrapyard that's gonna help us do all of it. So once I get all those pictures and I can submit them to the EPA, they'll release our funds. Right, you have some more students attending Pioneer Grove. McKay, since all the students at the McKay Center are all of Lincoln Way High Schools, the only increase there you're seeing is the 5% between personnel increases and HMO increases.
Just the one question with new buses, I don't know if there's more out there, but with more students, it looks like the one item that went down in the budget is bus monitors.
Right, and that's all.
Why would that go down?
And it's just because it depends on how many students need a monitor on the bus with them. So we have so many monitors, right, and so if you have a student that graduates that doesn't need that monitor anymore, that would come off of your budget. Because those are one-to-ones that we put on the buses.
Any additional questions? Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting us present.
So we can roll call for this.
Ms. Janice Doyle. Aye. Mr. Janik.
Aye.
Mr. Costick.
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti.
Aye.
Mr. Lulo.
Aye.
Mr. Perkins.
Aye. Thank you everyone for the help with this. Next is amend policy 1-20.
I'd ask for a motion to amend policy 120 as presented in your backup materials.
Motion to accept the policy as amended in the backup materials?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion regarding this?
And this was talked about a
Two
few
months
days
ago.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is to formalize, to stay in compliance with our policy manual. So our functional subdivisions, we've taken out the vacant from Assistant Superintendent of Business CSBO. We changed Dr. Murphy's title to Director of Data Assessment and Innovation. We have a Director of Technology that will still answer Brian Murphy. This is no additional personnel and no increase in salaries, but it does give a succinct and accurate picture of our current subdivision of our flow chart, organizational chart. The board had approved this, I believe, about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So we just will look to make sure that's up to date each year.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Ms. Jandy Stoyl? Aye. Mr. Janik?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Luchetti?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mr. Herpy?
Aye. Next, boys and girls lacrosse is an IHSA sport for the 2017-2018 school year.
We would recommend a motion to approve boys and girls lacrosse as an IHSA sport for the 17-18 school year. That would be the board discussion, and we can have discussion in terms of the logistics of that once the motion is made.
Would entertain a motion to approve boys and girls lacrosse as an IHSA sport for the 2017-2018 school year.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Discussion.
As we discussed at the last meeting, the timing is difficult for us, certainly. As time has gone by, we do anticipate the ability to fill a schedule within a 30 to 50 mile radius. We won't have to drive to Dunlop to play games. And so that was a contributing factor. Mr. Leone estimated that we spent somewhere around $8,000 in transportation this last year. And so that would be a cost borne by the district. What I would propose is that I work with the leaders of the lacrosse club. We continue to function as we have. We will provide some additional support, but the cost of the activity will have to be borne by the participants in this first year. At the conclusion of the year, we would bring back to the board an analysis of the costs associated with the sport, and also any additional logistics concerns we may have as we move forward. But I do think in terms of timing, if we don't do this, our students are not able to compete next year, and that's a significant factor. So in terms of the IHSA, this is now a sport. They went from the emerging sport list to a sport. We don't have any other emerging sports at this time. So it would be my recommendation to give the administration the direction to work with the club to move forward and compete this spring, both boys and girls.
Question.
Do we have an estimate of the increase in cost of what the district outlaid this year as a club versus what we're anticipating the cash outlay is going to be?
The only additional...
For the first year anyway?
For the first year, with scheduling and state series, we may be up $1,000 to $3,000 in transportation, but as we work through the process, currently we do not have lacrosse coaches in our bargaining agreement. So we would not be in a position to pay those salaries anyway. So that'll fall to the club. They will play a very similar schedule to what they played last year, so the cost of the officials will be just about the same. We will work with them to chalk the lines. Bags of chalk, we have plenty, and our maintenance guys are already out there doing baseball fields and the like anyway, so that I don't see that as being a significant cost. As long as the participants are able to do some fundraising and pay for the officials, what they would like to pay the coaches, and then provide uniforms and the equipment, this first year we'll be able to do it. We have not budgeted for the sport. The 80s do not have it in their budget at this time, but it's something that as we conclude all of our athletic seasons, we're going to get a better look at what we're spending this year and where we need to go moving forward.
And I assume there's overwhelming support from the parents of the lacrosse children that they'll be more than willing to keep paying for the school for the first year.
That's the sense I have. You know, it would have to be a situation where, as I work with the leadership of the club, which they've been great, and we've had a number of meetings and conversations, I think we would want the payments up front to ensure that the cost is going to be covered. We're looking at somewhere, it could be 80 to 100 boys is the estimate, and probably 45 to 50 girls is the number that we're projecting at this time.
That's district-wide, not per
That would
school.
be district-wide, correct.
One Lincoln Way.
It would be one Lincoln Way lacrosse, similar to gymnastics.
What are you estimating the cost is going to be per
Well,
player?
Cost per player is going to be somewhere between $266 and $400. That's based upon information I've received from the club about that club. And right now,
Fundraising, you know.
yes, if we do some fundraising, one of the things I talked to them about, you know, if we do a youth tournament, you know, we would be able to host a youth tournament in one of our facilities, maybe that would raise a couple $1,000 to help offset the cost. So we will work with the leadership, and really, I think by the time we'll be done, it won't be that different than what some of our other sports or marching band are experiencing right now in terms of cost and fundraising.
As far as having coaches, outside coaches that aren't Lincoln Way staff, and I mean, are we going to have to, I mean, what are our responsibilities there?
It's a good question. They would still have to go through all of our protocols. And so, in essence, they would receive a dollar contract from Lincoln Way so that they're still covered. We're still covered under the liability claim, as we are with every volunteer coach. So any volunteer coach that coaches for us, they have to sign essentially a dollar contract so that we are covered for the liability. So we would do the same. And then the club then would make the payments to those individual coaches based upon their agreements. That answers the question.
And the background of fingerprints, just like.
They would have to do everything just like any of our employees, correct?
Do we have any other areas where we have a similar situation?
We do marching band. You know, if we're looking at the choreography and yes, very, very similar. Very similar. And a number of our sports now also, you know, have volunteer off staff.
Who will be responsible for actually hiring the coach?
I will work with the club, but I think they have quality individuals in place. That's the personnel is the tricky part. I mean, no question about it. Because I know the kids are going to show up and the kids are going to compete. We just have to be sure, and I have the assurance from the club that they're representing Lincoln Way in the proper fashion through this, because that is with them going ahead, us doing the background and covering the liability. That would be the most important factor, is that they're representing the district as we want to be represented.
Would it be overstepping our bounds to ask that the coaches they present actually go through at least a small interview?
Absolutely. Meet with the athletic directors. I think that's very,
Rob.
yeah, I think that's very reasonable and something they would be agreeable to. Absolutely.
One thing was the facilities and, you know, in the spring, especially if the weather's bad. I mean, are the athletic directors comfortable?
They will be.
They can manage this?
No, that's a good question. Our biggest concern is the weather in April and May, and it always is. And so I think they're going to everyone will have to understand we'll have to have some flexibility if we have bad weather. And unfortunately, in the Chicago suburbs, that sometimes is a reality. So we will have to share facilities. I've also discussed a little bit with the lacrosse in terms of usage on Sundays. That's something we've stayed away from. This last spring, baseball, we were okay. The previous spring, because we had basically a rain out of a month, we scheduled time at Chicago State, UIC, some turf fields where we would try and get in a doubleheader on a Sunday afternoon. And so I wouldn't be opposed to Sunday afternoon matches if it's warranted, just to be able to get on the turf and have those events. You know, in our travel sports world that we have today, when you have the facilities, you have to play the games. And so certainly the Saturday afternoons, Saturday evenings, and Sundays would be more available.
Since it's going to be a Lincoln Way sport, what about students that are unable to pay the fee?
Well, I think as with marching band, I think the club will work with those individuals and those fundraising opportunities, Chris. And I think that is something that we'll work through on an individual basis. We do the same thing now with marching band students, with other students and other clubs and activities. So I think that's something we would work on an individual basis with the leadership of the organization.
Speak to that from experience. The leadership of marching band would work directly with administration to keep information only to be known to those that need to be known to, and then the club as a whole, or the band, the music department would rally and fill the gaps through fundraising.
So is there a bottom line dollar figure of what instituting this program would cost the district next year?
It would, I would say at most, we're looking at $11,000 to $12,000. We spent $8,000 this last year, and I'm only increasing that because of potential state series travel. I don't know yet where the host site is going to be for a state series or championship. If it's Lockport, it's home with Bossmore, then we're in really good shape. If it's Pekin or Dunlap, then we're looking at a little added expense in transportation.
So I just want to understand what it was through. Tonight, we're voting to authorize the district endorsing both boys and girls lacrosse as an IHSA sport.
Correct. So tomorrow, if the board were to pass, I would contact the IHSA and tell them, I notify them our board is authorized as a sport. And then logistically, I can continue to provide reports to the board as we work our way through the process.
So that'll be the vote tonight. Now, here's my hypothetical.
Yes.
This is a spring sport. We get to December, we find out that again, these are the optimists, but I'll be pessimistic. There's been a tragic shortfall in the ability to raise the funds to cover the necessary expenses associated with this. Then what happens?
We don't have to participate. So this is, in order to participate, this has to be passed, but at any time, the district would have the ability to work with the schedule, not like a game.
Yeah, it's just like any other sport, if there's not enough kids, or if there's not enough coaches, you always have the ability to get out, but once you have to be in.
I understand.
you have to be in.
I just wanted to
good
know if there was a tipping point that if we said yes, then we're kind of on the hook to go forward. Not that I believe that it will happen.
Scott, even though the parents are funding, say, uniforms and whatnot, we still have a final say that they have to have something that's appropriate or something
Sure,
within the realm.
that's a really good question. That's something we will continue to work with the club. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. Back a couple of years ago, they had shorts with all four colors of the league. So, yeah, no, we would work with them. I don't think there'd be any concerns there.
I received a few phone calls, and that one mother who spoke to us at the freshman breakfast, and it seems like there really is a cohesive parent force, and they're not afraid to spend the money, even though it's an unknown, but they're willing to spend the money just for us to approve it so that it could be a sanctioned sport.
Yeah. And it's an opportunity for our students.
Will there be seniors participating in this team soon? Junior, seniors?
Correct.
Or scholarships possibly?
Correct. In fact, some are already receiving quite a bit of notice. I think we'll have a scholarship.
The athletic trainers, that was another issue we discussed.
Yes, we would discuss with ATI. Currently, they have a trainer that has always provided services to them. So that's something we would ask that individual if they wanted to continue, particularly with the practicing at North. For games, then we'll work through that. I don't think it'll be an issue with ATI, but also if this other individual wanted to continue to volunteer their services, that would be an option as well.
And then just adding on to Ron's point about uniforms and everything, the district's involvement, I also, I'm sure they're very well equipped, but I mean, you would, from the standpoint of safety and, the helmets and everything, you want to make sure that they're all.
We are. They're it's not like football yet. I anticipate it getting to that point where football every year you have to have the stamp certification of reconditioning. It's not to that point yet, but I can see as it grows that becoming more of an issue.
Great question. Anyone else? We have a motion and a second. Need a roll call.
Ms. Janice Doyle?
Aye.
Mr. Janet?
Aye.
Mr. Costick?
Aye.
Mr. Lucetti?
Aye.
Mr. Lulo?
Aye.
Mr. Kirkland?
Aye. Well, best wishes. Good luck. All right, that ends our action items. Next, informational items. Report of the Lincoln Way Special Education District 843 Governing Board meeting.
Yes, I attended that meeting. The majority of it we discussed was about the budget that you heard tonight. So thanks for approving that for the district. Be a big help. The other thing, yesterday I didn't hear from Sarah. I forgot to ask her before she left, but how did you do yesterday with the speech paths? Did they approve?
Oh, the psychologists and social workers, yes, they did vote to approve and move it forward with the governing board for approval.
So as it is now, we're under contract with everybody there over the next 2 years, so everything is good moving forward. We don't anticipate any problems or issues. Keeping healthcare the same. That basically concludes my report.
Very good. And thank you for your participation and leadership with that. Next, policy 4-20, action plan.
Before I turn it over to Brad, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, we don't need a motion, do we? Okay, good. We're in information. Okay, so this would be a first reading of a policy 420. We have the fund balance 420, and so Brad developed an action plan that would be put in place as we adopt the budget to move forward and try and accomplish the goals set forth in the plan. I'll let Brad give an overview, and then we can do our best to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. So in your packet of information is just basically an overarching action plan. The thing to understand about this is, this 33% target, as the budgets grow, this is a moving, if you will, moving target. So the report here is just an example where we want to go. That's why it's set on a percentage. I couldn't put in exact dollars. I put in there the example of where we are, what it is as of fiscal year 18. So with the desired fund balance based on the fiscal year 18 budget of $84.7 million, we'd be looking at having roughly $28 million in fund balance. That's going to grow over time as our budgets adjust. So that's why, hence, we're looking at working at a target of a percentage. Basically, as you know, at the end of fiscal year 16, our operating budget or operating fund balance was a minus 5.96%. The close of this last year, we're at 0.31, made great progress. We're looking to hit a target of a 3% growth in our operating fund balance each year until we hit that 33%. That 33% should be the number. On some rough calculations, I agree with, to be where we'd be free of having to have any tax anticipation warrants. So it's a good target. You can see here, it could take us till fiscal year 2028 if we do to 3%. Obviously, there might be some times where we would be a little better than that, but I would say that's our goal, minimum of 3% increase.
Any questions for Brad?
And that also doesn't take into account, one of the reasons we had such a big jump was the land sales. We also have the pending land sales, so that will also help. This is just going by the operating funds, but that will also help the fund balances. I think this shows, we were in a pretty significant hole, and it's going to take a number of years to get back. I think I've been talking about the 3% number, I think that's it seems reasonable. It also doesn't, jeopardize current students and what we're spending, but we have to, obviously we have to get off these tax anticipation markets and set a goal. So I think this is a good plan. And this actually, we talked about this a number of months ago. It went through the finance committee. We had some good discussions. I think we're, I think this is a good plan to move forward with.
I appreciate you taking the effort to put forward the action plan. I know that was discussed when the policy was put in place, and I agree that this is a broad brush because you're shooting a moving target. But whether it's this board or future boards can at least refer back to this and see the template in place so that people can understand that this is where it's headed. but at least accelerate the land sales or a boom in EAV, but at least we know where we're sitting right now, which was something we didn't have before. Right. So thank you. You're welcome. Any other discussions regarding that? So we'll bring that back next meeting.
Yes, so we will adopt that as part of, as the action plan to go along with the budget and possible.
Great, thank you. Order request.
None to report.
Thank you. Policies.
Policies I placed in your backup materials. Summary of the policies update along with the policies update. If you have any questions prior to the next meeting, please get those to me. Not a number of significant changes, mostly verbiage and some footnote changes, but I'd be happy to answer any questions between now and the next meeting as we look for approval at the September meeting. It would not be brought back in the next August meeting, but in September, our regular meeting.
Thank you.
Can you just refresh my memory on how these are selected, who's put, I know there's
Okay.
organizations.
So it's press policy that works with the IASP that puts these together. So they do an annual review. They're on a review cycle. And so if there's any changes in legislation, they go in and make the necessary changes. And then so that's a pack of them. But then the rest of them are just on an annual review or on a review cycle. And as they're updated, they're sent in a packet. And so we receive a packet quarterly. So it would have any changes in legislation, and then I believe it's a 4-year cycle, everything's reviewed. If there's ever anything, a policy that we don't have, then I would contact John Izzo and then bring it to the notice of the board.
Anything else? Okay. Next item is the Surface Shield property tax abatement.
I'd like to discuss the Service Shield property tax abatement. We have with us this evening Patrick Coban from the Village of Tinley Park. He may be able to answer any questions we may have. I put the information in your backup materials. What it comes down to is Service Shield is looking to relocate 55 employees and 35 new jobs over the next 36 months. They're looking for a 50% 4-year tax abatement. The total subtraction, I guess, from Lincoln Way would be $90,494 per year, a total of $37,975 over a 4-year period. With abatements, the district would receive $56,963 during that time. Without abatements, the district would receive $94,937. This is not a new development. It's not new construction. This is an existing structure. So we do our best to answer any questions you may have. And this is something that we could put as an action item on the next agenda. We would do that at the August meeting.
So you made it pretty clear, but this would be a decrease in revenue to us.
Decrease in revenue.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Patrick? Sure. Yes.
Yes, this would be a decrease in revenue for 4 years, but it's a 7-year lease, and this is the company headquarters, so we're bringing them back to Tinley Park. We started in Tinley. My job as an economic development manager is to create and retain jobs, and right now, economic development is a contact sport. Wisconsin just gave up, I think, $3 billion to take some jobs. Indiana is doing the same thing here, so we're trying to do whatever we can to offset some of that. The Village of Tinley Park agreed to do the 4-year property tax abatement, so did Will County. So we're here today to ask you for your partnership to participate. It is 4 years for 50%, but it is a 7-year lease, and there's going to be a $100,000 investment into the property. I think it's the machinery though, but it is 55 jobs and 35 more. And if it does go vacant, it will go down in value, so it won't be the same EAV. But talked to some other people, they said, we might fill back up in a year or two, but the difference is that these are manufacturing jobs. So a manufacturing job has a multiplier of 3 to 1 compared to a warehouse job. So there could be 20 jobs in there moving a lot of things around compared to 55 jobs that people are making decent money actually manufacturing. And it's Surface Shields, and they do products that you put on like a basketball court, and whenever you put your feet on it, it takes all the dirt off your shoes. It's a really interesting product that they have actually. It is for 4 years would be a 50% reduction, but over the time, 7 years would actually be more.
My question is the building that is in Tinley Park, that's obviously within our district, is it currently occupied now?
It's getting ready to be vacant. It is like 50% occupied now, but they're leaving unfortunately.
Okay, so this business going in there, will it be 100% occupied?
100% occupied.
So the possibility of them leaving and this building being vacant,
So it will be.
okay, will be vacant.
It will be vacant for sure.
So there's no possibility. Would then the value of this building go down?
Yes. They would take a vacancy, I can't remember what the term is, but they reduce the value of the building based on the vacancy.
So then what would be the resulting tax from a vacant building?
So if it's vacant, you would be getting $17,000 a year.
How much are we getting now?
4 years would be 37, so I don't know, that is right.
Can I just chime in here?
Yes, please.
Okay, so one important thing to understand when looking at taxes, PTEL, Property Tax Extension Limit Law, actually broke the link between assessed value and district taxes. We tax on a dollar basis. We are, as a district, we do have an inherent value to make sure we have a strong, robust tax base. But if an individual property is decreased in assessment or increased in assessment, all that really does overall is change our tax rate. While it's important to us to keep a strong tax base, it has zero impact on our actual tax revenue.
Well, if
So
I agree with that, then it just means the rest of us have to bear.
exactly. That's why it's so important
There's no
for
such thing as free, it just gets pushed around.
it gets pushed around.
Okay.
It's like a big,
I get it. That's where I was going, was that.
Right.
So I go back to my question. If this building goes vacant,
Right.
next year, the owners will probably appeal the tax, you'll give the vacancy. What's the difference between a vacant building and what we're getting now?
Yeah, I ran the numbers based on it being vacant and what it would do with 50% abatement. Okay. That would actually be what it is now.
That would be a number I'd be interested in seeing, because I did the math and I left it at work, and we're not that far off. If that building goes vacant, they appeal those taxes. I understand it's not a direct dollar for dollar type deal, but at the end of the day, we're into the numbers get smaller quicker. So I'm not advocating here, I'm just saying that I would like to see that number shared. If you get that to Scott,
Oh, that's fine.
and then we could share that amongst the group. I think you'd step back and go, okay, well, if this building goes vacant, then I get the EAV is still the EAV, but then I pick up the quarter, right? Just for it among the rest of the community.
There's still a difference, in my opinion, there's still a difference between new development too, though, and an existing building. I mean, what company wouldn't then come and ask for this if they're gonna move in after you start giving it to one new company? I mean, have we ever provided this before?
I looked back, Chris, and I have not seen it on any existing companies. We have on, first-time companies, but I could not find in the minutes any existing companies.
And 161 voted no, correct?
They did not vote.
Not
They did not have those actions.
This is the first time we're doing this something that we're going to.
And I don't disagree, I just want to put, make sure that we understand that, there's multiple dimensions to this math problem. And just boom, and it's this or that. And then the fact that these are, and I'll get chastised for using this edge tip, but more robust employment opportunities that our area absolutely would desire. So.
Well, something I'd like to see, I mean, we're looking at something that's tangible, money-wise, but the intangible, maybe meeting with the owners and not to put any more on Tim's plate, but seeing if we could work something where we have an internship or something with our kids and this company. When 20% of our kids don't go to college and go into the workforce, and manufacturing being kind of the backbone of what this country was built on, I think it's important that we support manufacturing and do something for the 20% that don't go to college. And I think maybe if we could sit down with, I don't know how the owners would be to entertain that, or at least sit down and talk.
Sure.
But maybe somebody to consider, because it's an intangible, but it's definitely something coming back to us.
Any other questions?
There's 55 jobs that they're employing 55 people currently.
Currently over in Oak Park, there are 2 buildings, so they're going to consolidate into one in the 10 building.
They want to add 35 more.
Correct.
Say, currently, there might be families moving in and some of these new jobs and perhaps building new houses, and generating tax revenue that way as well as a result of the job growth too.
That's the economic.
That's the multiplier.
This is they're currently in Orland Park or Oak Park? I think Orland.
Orland Park, sorry about that.
I mean, they're already in the park.
But at least 35 more jobs.
But they're looking at
Potential from this
Indiana
area.
and also, and Indiana's throwing money at them, and that's what, dealing with Wisconsin, Indiana right now are my job.
Too close to the border.
Yeah, it's easy to get restaurants and grocery stores, but when it comes to manufacturing, they're throwing money at them.
So we quote you on the grocery store.
Yeah, grocery store.
Yeah,
I'm working on
keep
it.
that moving.
We're working on it.
Have they committed to this, meaning if everybody signs on, are they definitely coming, or are they still going to be taking this and shopping it versus Alsip and wherever else?
Oh, I'm not sure about that. We're just, we've signed on, and Will County's went ahead and passed it, now we're here. I'm not sure if they're gonna do it just with 2 of us, or 2 out of 3 out of 4, I don't know. So we don't know if all 4 sign on, but if they go somewhere else, then nobody's got anything anyway. This is just,
Maybe I didn't make my question clear. Have they indicated that if all of us do sign on, that they will definitely move here? They're still not going to, all 4 of us are going to, if all of these bodies say yes, are they still going to be shopping us versus Alsip in their other location?
I cannot guarantee that, but I do know from talking to them, they're not a fan of the idea of going to Indiana because so many of their workforce is already here, and they don't want to lose that workforce. Are they going to continue shopping around? I can't speak on their behalf on that.
Well, I just think of your whole concept of alliance.
We always do a lot, I mean, not that we don't do anything for the 20%, but I mean, we do so much, and I think it's important to remember that everyone doesn't go to college, and I know this year I'll fall short of $140,000 that a journeyman welder is gonna make, so sometimes being in the trades isn't a bad thing.
Very opposite. Any other questions?
So this will come next month if we want to put it on.
Yeah, I can talk with Mr. Perkin and come along after this next one.
Great. Thank you for your time. Next, buildings and grounds report.
There was quite a bit of material in your backup material on the buildings and grounds report. Mr. Wilkie is available if anyone has any questions or comments regarding the report. But all reports are in public content and viewable by the public. So if anyone has any items to discuss or any questions, I can do so.
Any specific questions for Rich this time?
Are we coming along with the punch list items on the roof?
I believe we have 2 ladders to install and then.
And Chris,
Once we, I'm
Yeah.
going to ask for you what you're going to say.
Yeah. So we've been in contact with the insurance company. Our adjuster has been on sick leave. Is due back Friday tomorrow, correct? And we'll have everything completed. The target date is by next Friday, but he has been on leave. Mr. Wilkie has been contacting the company. He said he's due back tomorrow, and then we'll have that in place for you. We'll have an update at the next August meeting.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time. Community relations report.
Once again, community relations report, your backup materials in public content. Oh, I didn't see Taryn. I saw her sneak in. Go ahead, Taryn. Congratulations. and welcome
Thank
back.
you, thank you.
For a while, we'll hear from you.
Lincoln Way students from the AFJROTC programs completed a week-long leadership school conducted at Wright State University in Dayton, Ohio. Cadets endured intense physical training, leadership skill classes, and team building activities. The Lincoln Way East girls volleyball team captured the Palos Court Summer League Championship. It's the second time they've done that. They did it last year as well. And then Lincoln Way Central freshman John Pettit and graduate Elaine Pettit raised money for a cause that is close to home. Their father had passed away from diabetes 4 years ago, and they asked for donations to the American Diabetes Association through a lemonade stand. And I want to give a shout out, she's not here right now, but My intern, who's doing this for credit through Lewis University, has done a phenomenal job with social media and putting out press releases while it's been out. So I just want to say thank you to her.
Okay. Next.
Asset of the month.
Commitment to learning, connection and commitment to school. At home, talk with your children about school and learning. Make learning a family affair at school. Actively engage your students with a variety of teaching methods. I think we do a pretty good job of that. And conduct an interest survey at the start of the school year, see what kids want to be involved in. In the community, encourage young people to use what they've learned in school to address issues and youth programs. That's asset of the month for September.
One of my favorite reports, the legislative report.
Your guess is as good as mine. I'm not going to make any predictions this evening.
I thought we were going to have a pool.
It's no secret, we meet quarterly with representation from the Illinois State Board of Education. Last week, we provided them all of our information. They have not yet gotten back to us what Senate Bill 1 would do, or what the amendatory veto would do for us. And so we thought we would get those numbers through 2020. So everybody's having a difficult time determining exactly what any of those numbers mean. Yes, the amendatory veto does appear on the surface that we would gain, but as we've looked at it, that might be the total of your categorical and your state aid. There are just too many variables at this time. At least we know in Senate Bill 1, with hold harmless and some of the items in place, we would gain revenue. So we will wait and see what happens in Springfield, but at this point, anybody's guess is as good as mine.
Do you think they would release enough if, I think they're supposed to, on August 20th, they're going to obviously miss that payment too. Do you think they would release that fourth quarter category?
I don't know.
Because they'd have the funds available.
If it were my guess from a political standpoint for Mendoza, yes, she will release, because that would be two in a row that they've kind of come to the rescue, so to speak. So if they did that, I would see that as a very positive for our district, as right now we've budgeted for the fiscal year. So getting those two by the end of September would definitely put us in a good place moving forward this fiscal year. From a selfish standpoint, I think that would be good for our district, because I would anticipate the state aid would be made whole at some point during the fiscal year. So if we were able to gain those four categoricals, that would put us in a better position. But nothing has been vouchered yet, but that is a possibility there, since it's a very good.
What is the deadline to override the 28th?
I would anticipate a brand new compromise at some point. I know, but I
think
don't.
It's scheduled to be voted on in the House on Wednesday.
Superintendent's report.
Also, just in your backup materials, pride sheet for Lincoln Way for this month. With ROTC, East Girls Volleyball captured the Palos Court Summer League Championship. Lincoln Way West sophomore Mackenzie Dickerson was named as the winning artist for the 2017 Frankfurt Fall Fest poster contest, and that's an outstanding accomplishment, as her artwork will be all over Frankfurt this fall, August and the beginning of September. And we sent freshman Anna and Olivia McMahon secured the world title in Irish dance, which is quite an interesting accomplishment, outstanding accomplishment. And then, as you heard from Karen earlier, John and Pettit, first day of school, fantastic. Principals did an outstanding job. The climate in the buildings, the students was excellent. Brad and I were able to get in all buildings and spend a couple hours in all the buildings today, and really off to a good start. I cannot say enough about our maintenance and custodial staff having all the building ready, our administrators and their diligence and having everything set day one, and then the ladies in the cafeteria did a fantastic job. As we might have discussed a little bit, we've changed some of our lunch options, and that's been the hot topic here on social media amongst the students. And did you try the pizza? Buffalo chicken pizza was outstanding. So off to a good start on day one.
Great. Good to hear. Takes a great start, yeah. Great. Joey, weren't you the original alumni that won the Irish dance? Thought I'd throw that out. Others didn't know that.
Number 14, actually.
Other district business. I think at this point, I need to ask a couple of our, I guess our some legacy board members, if you could, before our next meeting.
Before the September meeting, correct?
For the September meeting, to review our closed session minutes that are in your package. And at the risk of burdening your time, I'd like to ask Ron and Joe to do that before our September meeting. Aaron and Duff weren't here for some of those meetings, so.
I'll agree with
I really wasn't looking for your All right. Anything else? Anyone else at the board? Any comments or correspondence? Just a reminder that our next meeting will be August 31st, 2017, beginning at 7. Correct. 7 o'clock, and that'll be the board budget workshop. So again, that'll be a public meeting, open meeting, and we'll go through. Brad, I'm sorry, has given us the information on the budget. We ask that you go through it prior. Please get in your questions. Doesn't mean you can't ask the question again at the meeting, but at least we'll have answers prepared because it's there. This is the meat on the bone. So, okay. If not, I would entertain a motion. There is no closed session, correct? Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. So moved. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Anyone opposed?